while we try to make separation real, while we are in a competitive relation with life, we cannot transmute our own activities and restore the unity which is necessary for survival. We have to gradually recognize this problem of alchemical transformation. But before we can really accept it, we have to have some psychological proof, some form of evidence to give us confidence that this is true. It is not enough just simply to say it. We must in some way become aware, completely aware, of this inevitable reality. So aware and so conscious of it that we are enabled to develop its resources within ourselves and share them with others. The alchemists, and they're working in their little laboratories, were all looking for something. We find many accounts of them, and in several great European cities there are the old buildings called the houses of the alchemists, famous even now because at some time a mystical chemist lived there and labeled to perfect his works. Now, if this alchemy of the problem is real, how are we going to find out about it? How can we transform this searching into a discovery? Well, in the old alchemical system, there was a mysterious being called Elias the artist. Elias is the patriarch referred in the Bible as one who went to God without death. And this mysterious power, Elias the artist, would come in the night to some alchemist who was considered worthy and would give him the secret, or forgive him perhaps a few grains of the elixir of life, of the transmutation, would stay a little time and then disappear and never be seen again. And in each case, the Elias power left some proof behind it. It left evidence to the chemist himself that there was an answer, that there was a solution. And in some cases, as in the case of Sendivogius, this powder actually was used by him to transmute base metals, and apparently physically, he believed at least, it accomplished this end. Or was it true that Sendivogius also knew and put into symbolism what this powder really was? That it was not there to transmute base copper or bronze or iron, but to transmute base ignorance, superstition, or fear into the realization of truth. I think we have to recognize that the great transmutation must be in some way justified by human experience itself. We should be justified by the mere fact that we are alive, because the very existence in which we live has never been explained adequately. We do not know where we actually came from long before there were stars. We do not know where we are going after the last star goes out. We do not know what we are made of, except of substances that are held together by a strange magnetic chemistry. We know that we live from day to day upon life. We know that the very process of digesting food is an alchemical process. But we also must realize that this process goes to the acceptance and digesting of experience, which is another kind of food, a kind of food that nourishes the mind and understanding. That we must also experience the mystery of love, of divine acceptances of things. These are foods which must also sustain hope within the individual. Therefore, those things necessary for the attainment of the alchemical transmutation must be experienced within the person. He must become aware of these truths, and he must be able to apply them socially upon the different levels and parts of his society. He must understand what governments are. The governments are nothing but the hollow shadow or extension of a divine way of doing things, and that as long as any government differs from the archetype from which it came, it cannot fulfill itself. Therefore, governments must be regenerated. They must be reformed, revised, and restored to their original purpose, namely the purpose of fulfilling the infinite unfoldment of the divine purpose in creation. While governments are dependent entirely upon books and codes and creeds, or laws are passed only by those who are themselves ignorant of what law is, or where it comes from, or why it is, or what it must be, we are in trouble. But as long as we are willing to build our laws solely upon previous laws, or upon the previous incumbent in public office, we will never get to understand the final great fact, namely that all things obey except man, and out of his disobedience fell the angels. Every part of nature except man is incapable by its own constitution of actually violating universal law. It has no initiative. It has no free power to become a separate creature. Man is separate. He is separate because potentially he is capable of a greater advancement than any other kingdom of nature on this earth. He is the leading power here. All previous embodiments on this planet have been leading toward him. They have been gradually releasing that part of his own potential which enables him to stand and proclaim his existence. This, however, is not to be the subject of great rejoicing, nor is he to become completely overwhelmed by his own egotism. The fact that he exists is a remarkable thing. The fact that he can exist well is a still more remarkable thing. And he hasn't quite gotten there yet. But he is hoping. But his hopes have to be brought into some form of pattern. And when the old time, in the Bible, they spoke of the earth as a garden and considered that man was the gardener. Well, a gardener is one who takes care of the plants. We're not really doing that. As gardeners in the garden of life, we are not protecting it. We are exploiting it. We are not doing all we can to preserve it. We are doing all we can to make it a servant of personal ambitions. So we may say that nearly all of that which is rooted in ambition has a tendency to be corrupt. It may not necessarily be wrong, but it can easily become so. We cannot, by ambition of our own, do that which only eternity knows. We cannot solve problems that are greater than our insights or our understandings. But fortunately, we don't have to. We only have to come into a harmonious relationship with the great plan of life itself. And this is what, in a large way, alchemy really represented. It told us through human digestion and the digestion of metals that there are processes going on that if we do not interfere with them, corrupt them, or pervert them, are magnificently sufficient. The only thing we can do is cut ourselves off from life by the misuse of it. We can only destroy that which we have labored so hard to build: bodies, attitudes, institutions, nations, governments, parties, and policies. All these things we have built up only to destroy them by our own selfishness. Now we say that's a very great tragedy. Yes, but unfortunately there is still another point that is more important. Namely, if we can destroy them, they are not the thing we are seeking. Anything that can be destroyed is not part of the reality, which is completely indestructible. Therefore, we have to gradually bring our own consciousness into relationships with things in which we become aware of the indestructibility of truth. Until we realize this, we will continue to destroy idols we have set up, falsehoods we have deified, until finally we turn against them.